This video is brought to you by Cracks Only. The link is in the video description below to get the latest gear off their website. Whether you play football or you don't, there is something there for everybody. Straight out of LA. Check it out.
What's going on, guys? Good morning. Welcome back to United View. Hope everyone is doing very well, having a good Friday. Pinch punch, first day of the month and all that. Yes, just a couple of days away from the Manchester derby as well. And we've got a little bit to get into this morning, don't we? Has there been any Man United news going on over the last, shall we say, 12 hours or so? Has there been any interviews? Has there been any discussions? Has there been any questions about commitment or anything like that? No? Oh, I didn't think so. Oh, yes, there has been. Oh, and you're lying, of course. Yes, there has been the Marcus Rashford interview, which this morning we're going to do a deep dive in. That's what we're going to do. I thought to myself, I haven't really given my reaction to it. Flex, obviously, yesterday gave Flex's view, which lots of people got really involved in, lots of people really enjoyed. Saw a lot of discussion in the comments there. Of course, a lot of discussion on social media as well. And I thought, you know what, this morning, open forum. Open forum this morning. Let's discuss it. Let's go through the article. Let's go through the interview. Let's go through it bit by bit and just give your thoughts on it. I think there's lots of different things that have been raised by Rashford himself about commitment, about media, about money, about his background, about his performances, about this team's performances. There's a lot to get into. There really is a lot to get into when it comes to the Marcus Rashford piece. But first, this show, The Morning View, is brought to you by Cracks Only. You saw the video previously with Flex in all of his gear inside UVHQ. You got the beanie hats, the t-shirts, the hoodies, the grip socks, the wash bags, all of the apparel that you require from a big emerging LA-based brand for all weathers. Today I woke up, I could hear the raindrops are falling, and I like it. I like a bit of rain, me. I like a bit of, we're still in the winter, aren't we? Heading towards the spring, but I don't mind a bit of rain. So if you needed a puffer jacket, you can get one. They've got you all covered. Links in the video description below. Shout out to them and appreciate them supporting the show this morning. Let's see where everyone is at in the chat at the moment. Be sure to smash a like on the like button, by the way, as well. Let's out of the way. Let's just get 250. Let's straight away 250 like button done. Then we can get into the nitty gritty of the Marcus Rashford stuff. Yes, let's see what people are saying in the chat. Tabrez says, hope everyone's good today. Clovis says, we live. Good morning, Owen. Cold in Belgium. Hey, Belgium, look at that. You know me. I love the global UV community. I love when everyone says where they're watching from. It's fantastic. CH says, Judge Owen. What else have we got here? Keith, just with the Owen emoji. If you remember, you can use it. There are plenty of good emojis, actually, as well. What else have we got here? Joe Blackman says, Rashford can go. Daniel Luciano says, morning, Owen. Big up UV fam. Show says, first show without Ineos chat in months. Thank God. Well, Gas by United says, pissing down in Wales. So, there you go. John James says, good morning, UV family. Big up, Owen. What else have we got here? Ashley says, don't expect anything from Rashi, just waiting for him to go. Save energy for trying players. Mark O'Donnell says, morning, Owen. Snowing in Ireland. Wow, look at that. A variety of the weather this morning. I like that. What else have we got here? Araya says, Cracks Only, brought to you by Owens Only. I like that. All Elite says, love you, Owen. Thank you, always. Love you. Shout out All Elite. Love all of the UV community as well. Ashley says, good morning. Alex says, advert, shut the channel down. Well, yes. But yes, we've got a lot to get into this morning. The Marcus Rashford interview. Let's get into this Marcus Rashford interview. So, this is in the Players Tribune. It's a piece called Who I Really Am. And you do see, if you're not really familiar with this sort of platform, a lot of sort of sporting stars do sort of self-penned pieces about themselves, about their journey, about their career, just speaking from the world of wrestling, a lot of them have done it in there. It's kind of a voice for the players to come out or sports stars, athletes to come out and speak their minds and say what's really on their minds, or react to things, to respond to things. And just sort of broad strokes, how I feel about the Rashford stuff before we get into actually it bit by bit. I do think there are parts in which the things he's talking about are fair. And I think the things that he is talking about and articulating is fairly accurate, and it's worth calling out, and he's within his rights to feel that way. There are parts of it which I feel that are quite self-serving, and I think there are other parts of it which I think are just a bit eye-rolling as well. So there's a very broad spectrum of things that he's said and points that he's raised in this, and I feel like it's important not to just blanket it all by all criticism, all media scrutiny is bad, in the same way that it's not all good and it's not all constructive or positive. And that's why I think it's important to sort of go through it bit by bit as well. So that's indeed what we're going to do. So we can get the quotes up on the screen right here. This is what Marcus Rashford had to say. He says, "I don't normally like to respond to things said about me. It's not in my nature. I'm an introvert. I don't even like talking about myself unless I really know you. So 99% of the time, I can ignore the noise. But sometimes certain lines get crossed, and I can't help but want people just to understand who I am as a person." So really, straight away, you can see what his goal or mindset is coming into this interview, and it is a bit strange because it comes across as like he's written it himself, but it's actually an interview that he's done, and they've just kind of transcribed it, is really what it is. But so clearly, he's saying that, I feel like there have been certain lines crossed about the perception of me, or about the things that have been written about me in the media, and I'm doing this to let people know who I am, basically. This is who I am. Now, you could straight away say, I don't like to talk about myself, and then you pen a lengthy article about yourself, who I really am. Nevertheless, we shall continue. He next says, I'm not trying to have a go at the media. I understand the game. You know what I mean? They're not really writing about me. It's like they're writing about this character, Marcus Rashford. It can't just be about me as a 26-year-old lad on a night out, or a lad getting a parking ticket. It's got to be about how much my car costs, guessing my weekly salary, my jewellery, or even my tattoos. It's got to be about my body language, and questioning my morals, and speculating about my family and my football future. There's a tone to it that you don't get with all footballers. Let's just leave it at that. Now, even that, and this is why I really wanted to do this morning. This is why I wanted to go through this bit by bit by bit, because I think it's really important. And I have seen people commenting on this interview, this article, without maybe reading the whole piece, which I think is really important. So when he's saying, I'm not trying to have a go at the media, I understand the game, do you know what I mean? But you kind of are. but you kind of are. And even that, there are parts of that I do agree with. We have seen those articles. I have seen those articles from outlets, national newspapers, that are bullshit, that are completely out of line, that stink, that have got a certain whiff of a certain tone to it, where it will say like, Marcus Rashford in his £250,000 sports car gets a parking ticket because he's on a double yellow line, or Marcus Rashford goes shopping after a defeat for Manchester United, just to stir up the crazies. That's what they're doing in that sense. And it's disgusting. You do see that. And I'm not denying that at all. You absolutely see that. It's wrong. Marcus Rashford isn't alone in that instance. But, for example, remember earlier on this season with Andre Onana when he was making mistakes? Andre Onana drops his car keys. We see that. And you're absolutely right to call that out. Absolutely right. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that's not true. But, when it comes to talking about his, let's say his body language or his football future, I think some of that's valid by looking at performances on the pitch as well, right? I think that's a fair point to point out too. So the part where he's talking about aspects of the media coverage, I totally get, and I think he's right for calling that out. There's no problem. And people can say, I can see in the chat right now, people can say in the chat right now, no one's mentioned his car or his jewellery. What is he on about? There have been. Like, if you maybe haven't seen them, but legitimately there have been ones. So he's right to call that out, okay? And I want to be fair when it comes to this, because I'm going to have criticisms. He then says, I think some of it goes back to the pandemic. I was just trying to use my voice to make sure that kids weren't going hungry because I know exactly how it feels. For some reason, that seemed to rub certain people the wrong way. It seems like they've been waiting for me to have a human moment so they can point the finger and say, see who he really is. Now, when it comes to that, of what he's saying there, I don't necessarily agree. I mean, I suppose, unfortunately, nowadays, there is a kind of, I don't know what the best way to describe it of, when someone does get put on a pedestal or when someone does do good, it's like this weird societal, we like to see the rise, but we like to see the crash even more, you know? And I suppose when you do make put yourself a bigger entity outside of the world of football, right? You do then open yourself up to more scrutiny and you open yourself up to more attention. Now, what he did during the pandemic was fantastic. And what he achieved and what he pushed back on at a government level, because he enforced change, was fantastic. It was absolutely brilliant. And he was right to do that. And I would always credit him for doing that. But they're kind of separate, aren't they? They're kind of separate from certain people's issues. I think people are saying, well, we're not talking about that. We're talking about from a football point of view. And does, sirens in the chat, that's the first of the morning. Does that give you a pass for what you've done or what you don't do on a football pitch? And people will say, I don't think it really does. It continues by saying, listen, I'm not a perfect person. When I make a mistake, I'll be the first one to put my hand up and say that I need to do better. And this is really the thing that got me. But if you ever question my commitment to Manchester United, that's when I have to speak up. It's like somebody questioning my entire identity and everything I stand for as a man. I grew up here. I have played for this club since I was a boy. My family turned down life-changing money when I was a kid so I could wear this badge. Now, this is the thing. And this is really, it kind of encapsulates the whole article, is that he's really sort of suggesting that, you know, you can say what you want about me, you can write what you want about me, I get it, it's part of the game, but never question my commitment to Manchester United. Now, I read that and I go, wait a minute. First of all, I think people are well within their rights to question your commitment to the club because the evidence is there, you know. And what I mean by that is, people weren't questioning your commitment to Manchester United last season when you were playing well and you were in the form of your career. Last season, people were raving about you. Last season, you weren't forced to come out and write things. Well, he's not really been forced this time around, but you didn't feel you had to come out and say these things or write these things or do interviews like this time last year because you were playing fantastically and everyone was talking about how you were one of the most informed players in the Premier League, if not Europe. Whereas this year, performances have dropped off. And on top of that, stuff outside of the pitch has happened to make people go, like, is there something going on here? You know, when it comes to, like, for instance, we're playing Manchester City this weekend. After the Manchester City defeat at Old Trafford earlier on this season, and then he was out after the fact, and he was meant to be in training the next day. He was in training the next day, but he was out late, and everyone kind of shook their head at it, but said, well, you know, it's that weird blurred line, isn't it, between, yes, you're a footballer, but you're allowed to have a personal life, you're allowed to have a social life. It's that kind of thing that I think gets magnified today with social media, because back in the day, if they lost a match, you know, them going out and about wouldn't be pictured everywhere and plastered everywhere. And for some reason, there's this perception of, if you lose a match, you're not allowed to go outside. So that one was a bit earlier on, but still, you would say, but the night before training, pick your moments, Marcus, pick your moments. But then, it was really that Belfast incident, wasn't it? That people started to really question your commitment. It's very difficult, I think, as a fan, to sit here and read that. You know, if you ever question my commitment to Manchester United, that's when I have to speak up, because I think fans would look at it and say, well, if you're really committed to the cause, if you're really committed to winning and getting better and improving your form, improving the team's form, then you don't go out 2 nights in a row and then I don't know about, you know, the deception of whether or not because initially the club were like, no, he was out on a Wednesday, it wasn't Thursday. That turns out it was Thursday, and then you miss training and you miss a match. That leads one to question your commitment. How wouldn't it? In any walk of life, let alone a footballer for Manchester United, if you're in a job, right? If me doing this, because that's the best thing I can relate to, me doing this, if I knew I had to be up for 9 o'clock, do this show for you guys today, and you expect me to be here, and then I don't show up because the night before I'm out in Belfast, or for 2 nights I'm out in Belfast, and I miss training, or I miss this show rather, the next day, rightfully so, justifiably, people would say, do you really want to be here? Because it doesn't appear to be a priority to you, because it appears like that going out that evening was a priority to you. And then on top of that, when you do play, you know, the body language would suggest that you don't want to be here. So when I read that and said, when you question my commitment to Manchester United, that's why I have to speak up. Now, he then sort of later goes on to talk about his journey at Manchester United and how much he loves the club and what have you. And I don't, and again, that can still be true. This is the interesting thing with all of this, is these things that he is saying sort of later on in the interview, they can all be true. They can absolutely all be true. I don't think anyone's doubting the journey, and nobody's diminishing the journey and the hard work and the graft that he's put in to get where he's got. And even if you sort of strip away all of the outside noise about cars, jewellery, tattoos, and that kind of media BS, because I really don't think the fans care all that much about that, to be honest with you. I think when they see these kind of incidents that we've seen this season, factoring then the performances on the pitch and the body language on the pitch, I think the fans were within their right to say, you kind of don't look like you want to be here. And I think that's a fair criticism. Now, he carries on by saying, they want to talk about cars. Imagine being 5, 6, 7 years old and taking 4 different buses across town to get to training at the Cliff. That's not an exaggeration. Ask my mum. Somebody had to take off work to go with me because nobody had a car in our family. Nobody even had a license. In them early days, it was 2 buses into town, then we had to walk through the city and to get to the other bus out of town to get to Salford. Even in the pouring rain, nothing really good to eat. Training for hours with my mum sat there waiting for me, not knowing a thing about football. Just doing it out of love. Then the same back home, just to chase my dream of playing for United. And that's not me moaning, not at all. I loved every second of it. He carries on by saying, you know what the first thing they told us when we got to the Cliff? Express yourself. Tony Whelan, Eamon Mulvey and Mike Glennie, still to this day, some of the best advice I ever got in football. People will actually think I'm weird when I start talking about what United means to me, because if you're not me, then I'm sure it almost sounds fake. But you have to understand, when I was young, playing for United was everything. It was out of reach for us. It was hard to get there and even harder to stay there. I remember they used to have these 5-a-side tournaments all over Manchester where every player had to pay £1 to get in. It was all ages. You had kids playing against almost grown men. I'd always be asking my mum for £1 because if you won the whole tournament, your team got all the prize money. It was just about enough for a ticket to Old Trafford. We were so young, but we actually won it a few times. He then says, to me, just being there was like, it was everything. We used to stay until everyone had gone and the stadium was nearly empty, just looking around and listening. Old Trafford really has this sound to it. It's like a surround sound echo, and it's so calming to me. For a kid who moved around a lot, it always felt like my home. When something is inside you like that, it's just inside you. Nobody put it there, it's just there. when I was about 10 or 11 years old, I was getting a lot of attention, and we had all kinds of agents and clubs trying to pass things to the family. United still hadn't signed me to a scholarship, and people were offering all kinds of things. A few clubs offered us life-changing money. We'll buy the family a home. We'll put cars in your garage. We'll change your family's life. At the time, my mum was working as a cashier at Ladbrokes, and my brother was working for the AA. They had every right to tell me, just take the deal. He says, but they knew my dream was to play for United, so they never ever pressured me. I don't know how many people know this, but I actually played 2 academy games for that one club to see how I liked it. I remember walking out of the dressing room and seeing my mum and brothers, and they just asked me, what do you want to do, stay or go? I said, I want to go back to United. So the point he's trying to make here by all of these stories is that, again, when you're questioning his commitment, you know, it wasn't easy for him due to his background and due to finances and what have you to play for United to get there. He did everything he could, his family could, to get there. He even played games for Manchester City, and he said, no, I can't do this. I love Manchester United. That's what he's saying. You know, he's saying that I play for Manchester United. This is all I care about. Manchester United. That's all I care about. So don't question my commitment. He carries on by saying, that was it. We got back on the bus. We bet everything on ourselves, all our chips. Looking back on it now and seeing how many amazing young players never made it to the first team, it was a huge risk, but for me, it was the only choice. I remember around that time we had a family meeting, and I said, if we do make it to play for United someday, I want to be able to look you all in the eyes and say that you've not changed. And I want you to look at me in my eyes and say, I've not changed. So once again, continuing this, you know, I've not changed. I love the club, etc. But people think they know my family story, but they're only scratching the surface. There's a lot that people don't know because I don't feel comfortable sharing it all while I'm still playing. But the struggle was real. It wasn't a commercial. It wasn't a movie. People say that I'm from Wythenshawe, but I had to move all over as a kid. I stayed everywhere. Hulme with my auntie, Moss Side with my nana, Chorlton with my brother for a while, Saltney Avenue in Withington, all over. He then says, but I wouldn't change any of it, as hard as it was, because it molded me into who I am. I still run into guys from where I used to live, and we'll just start shaking our heads and laughing like, do you remember those days, bro? If you know, then you know. You know what's crazy? I probably shouldn't even admit this, but I used to go back during my first season with United's first team and play street football with my friends on days off. That's my culture. It's still a part of me, and I think it's one of the reasons I made it out. If you didn't live it with us, then I don't expect you to understand. He carries on by saying, there's a thing my mum used to always say to me from when I was young. She said, nothing is for free, Marcus. That wisdom wasn't about football. She didn't tell me that just to keep me away from agents. It was about life in general. Every year that goes by, I understand it more and more. Nothing is for free. So as I mentioned, just to jump in a little bit, you can see what's the structure of what's sort of being crafted here, isn't it? So the opening part is very much about kind of setting his stall out. I want to push back to what's being said about me. I want to push back to what's being written about me, said about me in the media, and particularly the questioning of my commitment to Manchester United. Here's how I got to being who I am today at Manchester United. So I guess his hope is, if you know a bit more about me, then this, I guess, scrutiny will subside. But I don't think it will. I don't think it will. But, it's interesting to see the background, nevertheless. He says, money is great. It's all a blessing. But dreams are priceless for me. Even at 11 years old, playing for United was my only goal. I remember around that time when I was still trying to get signed, Wazza and Cristiano came by to do something with all the academy lads. And I was just looking at them in awe. You know what I mean? They had a photographer there. And at the end, all us kids had a chance to get a picture of them. I remember hanging back away from everyone. I remember my brother saying, go take a picture of Wazza, bro. What are you doing? He said, I said, I don't need a picture. He said, don't need a picture. I said, I'm going to be playing alongside them one day. He then said, I think I was the only kid who didn't get a photo. After we had turned down the money, there was just this hunger inside me. I didn't see myself as a kid anymore. I had to grab my opportunity and change our lives, period. To be able to go on and really live that dream as a kid from Manchester, as a kid from Hull, Moss Side, Chorlton, Withington, Wythenshawe. If you think I would ever take that for granted, then you simply do not know me. So once again, he is saying, again, don't question my commitment. Don't think it's about money. Don't think it's about, don't think I don't care, because I don't take this for granted. I haven't forgotten where I've come from. And basically, you don't know me, essentially. He then says, listen, the thing is, football can be a bubble. I've tried to stay a normal person. I've tried to keep my same friends. I've tried my best not to change, even when I'm on a night out or on holiday. But there's another side to that. I'm a human being. I've made mistakes that a lot of their lads in their 20s make, and I've tried to learn from them. But I've also made sacrifices that nobody sees. The thing that I want you to understand is that money is not what keeps you playing through hard times. It's the love of the game, plain and simple. He then said, we all know that this has been a club in transition the last few seasons. When we are winning, you are the greatest fans in the world, and that's a fact. We need more of that old school positive energy around the club. I know what that kind of atmosphere can do because it kept me going through my worst moments. Every time I walk out onto the pitch and hear the fans singing my name or look around Old Trafford before kickoff, I feel that same positive energy. Deep down, when I look around before every kickoff, I'm still a fan. I can't get that out of my blood. And I'll never forget the first time I played at Anfield and felt that atmosphere of United versus Liverpool from the pitch. And I heard the whistle go and the roar from the crowd. I had so much adrenaline that I almost got sent off early in the match. I love James Milner, but I sprinted straight at him and flew in for a reckless tackle because I just had so much emotion going through me. Not as a United player, but as a United fan who just happened to be out on the pitch against Liverpool. I remember coming home and telling my family, we need to get this under control right now. I need to find a way to get the fan part out of me, or else I'm going to get sent off in every game. Which again is quite the contradiction, isn't it? Because it's quite the contradiction because he's saying, I'm still a fan, but I've got to get the fan out of me, which I thought was quite curious. Last couple of ones. He says, I can take any criticism. I can take any headline from podcasts, social media, and the papers. I can take it. But if you start questioning my commitment to this club and my love for football and bringing my family into it, then I'd simply ask you have a bit more humanity. Which again, like I said, there are points in this which, and this is why I wanted to read the whole thing. And I apologize, people going, oh, why are you going to read the whole thing? Because I think it's important to offer as much context as possible. What I don't want to do this morning is come in here and just be like, Marcus Rashford, he said this, cherry pick some quotes that I don't like, and then completely rip them apart. Or cherry pick some quotes that I do like and anything, and then big him up. It's important, I think, to be as level-headed and fair as you possibly can. When he says this here, I can take any criticism. I can take any headline from podcasts, social media, and the papers. I can take it. But if you start questioning my commitment to this club, my love for football, then have a bit of humanity. Then says bringing his family into it. Unfortunately, I suppose his family is involved in his footballing world because his brother is his agent. That is also part of it, unfortunately. So they are going to talk about specifically your brother when they're talking about your contract and futures and moves away from Old Trafford. That is inevitable as well. But I would read that and go, well, I don't think you can. I don't think you can take some of that criticism, because why are you doing this piece in the first place? Which is basically about don't question my commitment. And some of the criticism, as I said earlier on, is, wide of the mark. Some of the criticism has nothing to do with football. And that's what it should really be sticking to most of the time. What happens on the pitch once you step over the white line? Are you doing what you're paid well to do? Are you doing what is expected of you at Manchester United? Are you doing your job? And when you're not hitting the expectations and the standards that people think of you or have seen you do last season, you're going to get criticism. And we have seen him react on social media or through the press like this to criticism. So I don't know if that part of I can take any criticism, I would push back on that and go, I'm not sure that you can. I'm not sure that you can. And as far as bringing, like I said, his family into it, if they're members of the family that got nothing to do with football, then that's it's off limits. Obviously, it's off limits. You don't get involved in that. There are sort of gutter papers that do that kind of thing, and it's too much for me. I don't look at any of that. I can't be doing with any of that. When it comes to, as I mentioned, though, his agent, who is his brother, then that is kind of, when you're talking about football again and contracts, then that is kind of fair game, I think, as well. He then says, you know what, though? If I'm honest, a part of me doesn't mind it when people doubt me. These are the last two bits that got me. So it's the last two bits here. If I'm honest, a part of me doesn't mind when people doubt me. When everyone is telling me they love me, I get suspicious. I know the way the world works. I had to become a man really young. Always had to rely on myself. Whenever I've been in my darkest of places, I feel like half the world is against me. I tend to go off by myself for a couple of days and reset, and then I'm fine. I think it goes back to me kind of dribbling all over the street on my own until it was so dark that I couldn't see the ball anymore, and I could hear my mum shouting for me to come home. That's just me being an introvert, needing my space to reset. Other times that hasn't worked. I found someone to talk to. Sometimes that's the way to do it, but every single time I've been down, physically or mentally, I always feel like that's when I turn it around and play my best football for United and England. He then concludes by saying, I promise you, the world has not seen the best of this United squad and these players. We want to be back playing in the Champions League. Then we have a massive international tournament at the end of the season. We will be back where we belong. We just have to keep working, and that starts with me. If you back me, good. If you doubt me, even better. And I looked at that last line. Where he's saying, if you back me, good. If you doubt me, even better. Then I went, then what are we doing this for? then what are we doing this for? Because there are people that are doubting you. There are people that are doubting. What is there a difference between questioning your commitment or doubting your commitment? Realistically, right? So that's what he said. And my general feeling is, and we'll get to your super chats and comments in just a second. My general feeling is that there are parts of it, as I said earlier on, that I think are fair when it comes to certain aspects of the media portrayal of him. I don't think are fair about, I said, his wealth or what he does off the pitch in his personal life. I could care less about that. I know that people do that to sell tabloids and headlines, and that's just, again, to me, that's kind of gutter journalism. I don't care about that. When it comes to questioning his commitment to Manchester United, I think there have been valid questions about his commitment. So I don't think people should feel bad for questioning that. And when it comes to, doubt me, even better, and all this kind of stuff, it's a pretty straightforward situation, isn't it? Actions are louder than words. And I think that, as I've said, some of the things I think that he's saying are valid, and I think he's right to speak out about. But, actions will speak louder than words too. And as I said earlier on, he didn't feel the need to do that this time last season because he was playing very well. And that's the key thing. And there were parts of it that I did kind of roll my eyes at and go, okay, I don't, and you can maybe let me know in the chat about this. Do you think it's generated the reaction that maybe he had? Do you think maybe it's generated the reaction that he had, that he wanted, that he intended? Because if it was me, if I was advising Marcus Rashford in this situation, going, I don't like some of the things that have been written and said about me. Maybe I should come out and write this piece or do this thing for the Players Tribune. I would have advised him not to do it. I would have said, mate, it's not worth it. I'd say, do your talking on the pitch. That's the bread and butter of football. Don't bother, And if you do want to do something like that, do it when you're doing well. Do it when you're doing well, because then you can really, if you want to prove a point, do it when you're doing well. Then you rub people's faces in it and say, see, you doubted me a year ago. Now I'm playing well, and this is my story. This is how I overcame it, to be honest. So I would have said no, and particularly on the ahead of a big game, because it's just put more pressure on him. There's been pressure constantly on Marcus Rashford because of his poor performances this season and stuff that's happened off the pitch too. And there's even more pressure now as well. And I do find it quite curious as well that the club are kind of pushing it too. So I've seen it on the club social media channels pushing it as well. So that would have been my thing to him, would say, not now. Do your talking on the pitch. And then once you start, if you find your form again, then tell people off. It's very difficult when you're in a bad moment to, I think, tell people that, to push back on people. The time to almost do it is once you reclaim your form, I think, and like I said, I don't think, and I have seen people completely just, shut up, you don't know what you're talking about, this, that, and the other. And I won't go that far, because I do think things he's saying there are valid, but I don't think the timing's right. And I do think there are parts of it that you would just say, mate, do your talking on the pitch. Super chats here. Daniel Luciano says, that is fair, but he simply isn't good enough. Ivor Clips says, Owen, he needs to prove us wrong on the pitch. Ketchadil says, please say some fans, because we watch other United fans chatting rubbish about Rashford. This fan base is toxic and has no respect for the players. Well, this is the interesting thing. And I've been thinking about this quite a lot, about, fans and supporting of the team. And I think we kind of do have to realize, don't we, that everyone's not going to agree on a variety of different things. And like I've said this before, like the booing of players on the pitch and that kind of stuff, that's not for me. I don't agree with that as well. But there'll be people, and we've seen it with the reaction to this interview, where there are some reactions to it which is totally, well done, Rashford. Go speak out. You should speak out. Some of the stuff you have been that's been said about you is wrong. Good for you. There are others that are like, I roll PR, just classic PR Rashford again's at it. No, I'm not even listening. And then there are others that are like, well, parts of it I think are fair, but ultimately, you got to do your talking on the pitch, mate. And again, it's a difficult one. For me, I'd have just said not do it, to be honest with you. Treble Champ says, Rashi has been poorly advised. This isn't very professional and comes across as woe is me. Done more damage than good. Do talking on the pitch. We know his history. It's not news. Amanor says, Owen, Rashi is doing this to deflect his shit performance. Did you hear any of this last season when he scored 30 goals? He has lost his hunger on the pitch. Lee says, this culture needs to be ripped out of the club. Imagine this in Keane's day. Absolutely embarrassing. How dare this guy who consistently puts in no effort try and invoke my sympathy? I think we've got another chat there as well. Tony's been a member for a month, says, guess he wants to go to PSG. Well, this is the other part of it as well, isn't it? Is that you could be very cynical, and I might be something in this, and say, is it any coincidence that this piece comes out, was it just days after, was it Ben Jacobs did the report saying Marcus Rashford really wants to be part of the Ineos rebuild at Manchester United. He's totally committed to the project, and he dreams of being involved, and he dreams of winning these trophies with United, this, that, and the other. And once again, I think you would just say, when it comes to all of this, and this is maybe the other part of it as well, I think, from United fans, is we're just really jaded, aren't we? I think we're just really jaded when it comes to this kind of stuff. We're really jaded with players coming out and hitting out. We're really jaded with interviews. We're really jaded with dreams and aspirations, and we're really jaded with just all of it, I think. And I think the fans just want to see commitment on the pitch, professionalism off of it, and that's it. And it seems like such a low bar, and I think that's just it, really. And aspects of the media, when it comes to those other parts of it, you can't control, and I'm not condoning it because I don't think it's right. And I've even on social media myself have called it out, and I even tried it with Rashford last season when he was playing well, of Marcus Rashford's, because sometimes it's like Marcus Rashford and Terrell Malacia go shopping after a victory for Manchester United, and you go, what is this story? Like, what? Like, what is this story? So I get that, but I do think a lot of the fans questioning his commitment, I do think comes from a relatively good place, which is just, that noise about your commitment and questioning it wasn't there last season, because we could see it. You could see it with your eyes. You could see it. You could see it on the pitch by scoring goals, by winning games, by being the difference, by being one of the best players on the pitch. And the reason that that's kind of happened now this season, about the commitment, is because we don't see that. I think as fans, we go, well, what's happened? What's changed? And the Rashford of, sprinting and pressing people, you don't see. You do see the jog, and you do see the body language, and then you do see the instance off the pitch. And I think people are well within their right to sort of go, man, and they put 2 and 2 together, go, you just got a new contract based off that last season, and your performance has dropped off, and we see this, what's going on? And that absolutely doesn't justify those ridiculous stories about people's cars and their jewellery and whatever, because that's bullshit. It's rubbish journalism. It's not even journalism. And it's so disgusting when they do that, because you know exactly what they're doing. They're just trying to feed to that section of, I guess, humanity that just want to ridicule and just want to, punch up because they feel bad about their own circumstances. But if you park that to one side, when it comes to the stuff on the pitch, I think people are well within their rights to critique that. And yes, telling your story and your background and how you got to where you are today, does it give extra context? Sure, absolutely it does. But is that, I don't know, you can let me know in the chat. Does that really change your opinion about what he's doing today or what he's done this season on the pitch? If you know his story to how he got there, perhaps it will, perhaps it doesn't. But actions, I think, speak louder than words, to be honest with you. What else have we got here when it comes to super chats? Danny DeVito says, for a guy whose celebration is to point to his head to show a strong mentality, he sure does his best to prove otherwise. That's kind of my overarching feeling on this, is just, I think he just shouldn't have done it. I think just don't do it. Or if you do want to do it, save it for when you're doing well. That's the time to do it, not now. Because what you are asking for is extra scrutiny. What you're asking for is extra pressure. Because let's face it too, if Marcus Rashford most likely at the Etihad on Sunday, he's going to play through the middle, isn't he? He's going to play through the middle again. If Marcus Rashford does what he did against Forest on Wednesday, which is just, the sort of jogging around and half-heartedness and 50-50 tackles where he kind of dangles a leg in and then backs out, then people will use this as a point of reference. They'll go, how come you said this? Or they'll use the quotes against him. That's why I think it was ill-advised to do it, to be honest with you. I don't see the upside. And what I also don't see is really the point of doing a whole piece about don't question my commitment, and then ending it with, if you doubt me, even better. Because that's the reason we are where we are. That's the reason we are where we are right now, is people are doubting you. And the best thing to do to silence the doubters would be do it on the pitch, I would think. So, yeah. And then it's just another subplot, isn't it? There's so many subplots now going into Sunday's Manchester derby. Of course, the biggest subplot is we're not doing great this season. And the stats and the rumours of Erik ten Hag and what have you. Then there's the subplot yesterday with Bruno Fernandes and Erik ten Hag really backing his captain, and Fulham should apologise, and the TikTok and Bruno Fernandes' reputation. And now there's this other subplot with Marcus Rashford's come out and done this article, which it's almost an unnecessary subplot to add, isn't it? It's an unnecessary subplot to add to an already jam-packed with talking point situation with United heading into the Manchester derby. Heaven forbid we go into a big game with no drama. We've got enough of it on the pitch, let alone off of it. Heaven forbid we constantly have... we go into the game and it's just the only talking point is the game. The only talking point is, are we gonna win? How are we performing on the pitch? That's also the part of it I just don't like. I just don't like the timing, the timing of it all. I would have said not during the Manchester derby weekend. An international break's coming up. Do it then. There's no club football there. You'll be away. You're with your country, where you're much more protected in terms of the bubble. Do it then. Not now. Not when the Manchester derby's coming up. Because that is when you go, well, that's traction. That's people talking about you. And people will continue to talk about you. And, hopefully the added pressure makes him show up, makes him perform. I mean, Marcus Rashford's best performance that I can recall recently was after the Belfast incident against Wolves, where he scored early on, and he was all right. He had a bit between his teeth that day. Maybe it's a case of that's what he needs to be backed into a corner. Maybe that's what we're looking at. I don't know. But I just thought the whole thing was ill-advised. Let's see what people are saying in the chat at the moment. MA says, when we win on Sunday, I feel the double is back on. I see the positivity. Joel London says, yep, our players always have great timing with their stories before a big game. And look, if Marcus Rashford hadn't done the interview, then the media would have found something, because there's always something. There's every time there's a big game. I expect something to drop today or maybe even tomorrow. I've not heard anything, by the way, but that's just how it works. Every time we've got a big game, there's always some kind of story. There's always some kind of controversy because it's the weekend of a big game and we can't just focus on the big game. That would be impossible. We can't do that. Not at all. What else are people saying here? Direct to me says, in all fairness, Bruno needs to change his antics. It's boring. Ed says, I hope PSG aren't put off by Rashford's antics. We need that sale. Skiliano says, I wish United would just play well. Then all this garbage is irrelevant. And I think that's part of it too, isn't it? Is that in a time which we're not playing well, you just don't need this extra noise too. You don't. Chris says, 5 goals in all competitions. We've lost 10 games this season already. And this guy comes out swinging. Just please. So... yeah, it's the reaction. I don't think the reaction is one that he would have, or his team would have anticipated. I don't think. I think that maybe the anticipated response would have been one of backing and maybe sympathy. And I think, look, we got it from some places, but I think the best way to put it is, like I was saying earlier on, I just think that United fans are just a bit jaded by all of it. And that's not just Marcus Rashford. I don't want to just say this is because he's done the article. I think by all of it, by any player you can think of when it comes to not playing well or interviews. Look how many we've seen the last couple of years. Whether it's Ronaldo, whether it's the takeover stuff or the acquisition stuff, I think we're just very jaded. And whenever we see it all, it's just kind of like, okay, let's just do it on the pitch, please. Please do it on the pitch. How many likes are we currently at? We've got over 1,000 people watching, by the way, guys. I know we haven't really pushed the like button this morning because there's been a lot to get through with that Rashford article. We haven't got 200 likes. Let's see if we can raise the like button. I know we can. There's at least half of you can click the like button at the moment. So yes, if you haven't already clicked the like button, see if we can get to what? 300, 400. We're not even at 200 at the moment. My gosh. What else have people got here? Travash says, "Go support another club then." That's also the other weird thing. I don't think it makes you any less of a supporter or a fan if you go like Rashford. Your performances haven't been very good this season, and the stuff off the pitch and your body language off the pitch. Like, do you want to be here? I don't think that takes away your Manchester United fan card. You're no longer a fan. You cannot be a fan anymore. No. I think some of the criticism of him has been valid. Some of the stuff has been too far. Some of it's over the mark. That's the media, and the media's shit. Like, that's... it is. Yes. So, Clovis says he's speaking on the constant abuse, not the fair critics he's getting. And looking at this comments, he's speaking to Woolen calling him a clown. Well, but that's the thing. I think that, and as I've said, Clovis, I think... when it comes to the abuse, obviously, then it's way over the mark. And in fairness, I don't think really anyone's justifying that and saying, "Oh, that's fine." I don't think they're saying that at all. And that thing is completely wrong. I don't know how many times I need to say it in this stream, but that he's also saying you can't question my commitment to Manchester United. I mean, that's what he has said. He has literally said, you can't question my commitment. You don't question my commitment to United. That's when I have to speak up. And that's exactly what people are doing. And to question his commitment when you see the things you've seen, I think is fair. I think that is fair. I don't think anyone's saying, oh yeah, those things when they are talking about his money or they are talking about his cars or his jewelry or his tattoos. Yeah, that's good. Go for it. No, of course it's not. That's absolutely not. That's not fine. That's not okay because we know what they're doing there, and that's never acceptable. But when he's saying you can't question my commitment and I can take any headline, I think then you're within your rights to push back going, well, I don't think you can, to be honest, seeing what we can see. So that's where parts of it come across as tone deaf. And that's where you just say, do your talking on the pitch, Rashi. That's what you got to do. Score goals, win games. All of that noise gets a lot quieter. And we saw it last season too. Those people that are questioning, and I'll put myself in this, that are questioning your commitment to the club, they'll become your biggest supporters. There were a lot of United fans. I know there were United fans last season when he was playing well, and they were like, this will drop off. This is just a purple patch, this, that, and the other. But I think United fans, they want to brag about their players. They want to say how good they are. Last season when Rashford scoring some of the most goals in Europe in all competitions, wasn't he like third or something like that? Talking about how many people score goals. We're raving about him. And we're telling all of these opposition fans, yeah, but look at Marcus, look at the goals he's scoring. He's our guy. Because we want to brag about them. We want to big them up. We want to brag about their successes as well. That's what we want to do. So as far as the commitment stuff, I think that is kind of fair game, certainly. And Clovis says, he has spoken his mind, let's wait and see on Sunday. Well, that's the thing too, isn't it? That's the thing. Sunday, if it's the same as it was in the week, then it just gets louder. And that's the risk that he has taken by doing this. Because if the intention was for people to back off because he's now explained his story much more, then that's not the reaction that he'll get. It's not. So yes. But that's obviously the latest when it comes to the world of Manchester United. That's what's dominating the headlines at the moment. As far as for the weekend, how am I feeling about it? Well, gosh. Eric Ten Hag spoke in the press conference yesterday that it's the same squad. So in terms of people being available, there's no difference. I think that if I had to predict a team that will play, and you can let me know about this, who do I think is going to be the starting 11? Obviously, Onana in goal. The big question is it going to be Amrabat at left back? Because I think the reason why United got away with that against Forest is because we did have more of the ball. And Amrabat essentially turned into a midfielder in the game because that's what he is. Against City, you're not going to have the ball. And you're almost better off, I think, having Victor Lindelof at left back and having Johnny Evans and Rafael Varane as your back four. And just getting tight, compact back four as much as you can. Because Amrabat at left back against City will just get ripped apart. Not to say that Victor Lindelof wouldn't, because he will. But there were gaps, and that's just a disaster, I think, waiting to happen. Midfield, Kobe will come back in, I think. So that's Kobe, Casemiro. Bruno will play, because of course he will play. And then the front three, I think, will be Rashford through the middle, Garnacho on the left, and Antony on the right. As far as a prediction, look, if we were to win, which I really would be, I'd be stunned, to be honest with you. It would have to be like a 1-0 or something. But us keeping a clean sheet at the Etihad, my gosh. Or maybe like a 2-1. I don't know. But I don't think it's a hot take to say that City probably will win. What we have shown this season, and I suppose a positive that you can take going into the game, is that when we went to Anfield, nobody thought we were going to get a point. At all. Nobody. And I know standards, we're Manchester United, embarrassing. I get it. Totally get it. No, but no one thought we were going to get a point when we went to Anfield. And we got a point by just being resolute. To be honest, as much as Liverpool didn't play well that day, so that's what you got to hope to, is that City don't click, because they're very good. I mean, they won the treble last season. So you got to hope City don't click and try and limit them as much as you can, which, to be fair, at Anfield we did. Liverpool, Andre Onana didn't have to make a ton of big saves or anything like that. If anything, United had the best chance in the game, really. So that's the hope you've got to take. And that's what it is. It's hope. If Manchester City play to their best, we will lose. We will. But we've got to stay compact, got to stay resolute, got to believe. And use that point away at Anfield as something to go by. You know, point away at Anfield, one away at Villa recently too. That's what you got to try and do anyway, isn't it? So there you go, guys. Be sure to smash a like on the like button. Be sure to subscribe, bottom right-hand corner. What's on tap for today? Oh, yes, the Trinity podcast. Yes, episode, what's it, 5? Is it 5? I think it is. I think it's episode 5. Flex, KG, and myself. Lots of people been really enjoying that. So episode 5, there's so much to talk about, isn't there? So much. There's obviously this Rashford thing, there's the derby, there's the Bruno stuff, and then you know what happens with the Trinity podcast, it just derails very, very quickly into complete madness. Absolutely. Complete craziness. So yes. Anyway, guys, be sure to smash a like on the like button. Be sure to subscribe. We'll speak again soon. Sean hasn't enjoyed the show. Says, poor form today, Owen. Do better tomorrow. Well, what I will do then, Sean, is you can catch me in the Players Tribune. I will say, Sean's been doubting me. Don't doubt my commitment to United View, Sean. If you doubt me, what was it? What was the end line? If you back me, good, Sean. If you doubt me, even better. Yeah, that's what you got to do. Doubt me even better, Sean. Okay, do better tomorrow. The problem is, I'm not on tomorrow. I'm not here. So Sunday I will. Terrible performance for me today. Player ratings in. Get them in the chat right now. 0 out of 10. That's what it was. It was poor from me. Very, very poor. Yeah. Well, can't really, average. It was average what it was. A lot of minus numbers. I'm looking for that move. to PSG. Or, Alice Talks Football, Stretford Paddock. We're in negotiations. We're in talks. But at the moment, I'm committed to UV. That's the future. That's the future for me. It is true. I've missed a couple of training sessions, a couple of production meetings. It's a problem. But we're in chats. We're in discussions. Anyway, guys, a big up Stretford Paddock, big up to Alice as well. I don't know why we always use those as the comparisons. Big up. Anyway, guys, I'm out of here. Have a good Friday. We'll be back later on. Peace.